Today we're going to talk about breath support. Now, a lot of you are thinking, breathing. I'm great at it. Breath support is the foundation of singing. Basically, it means you are engaging your abdominal muscles so that you can sing with less effort. We want to work less and take the strain off of our voices and our bodies. There are people that have dedicated their entire lives to this study, and there are actually just full-on courses that you can take just on Apagio alone. There's so much to learn. This is a very general overview, so hopefully it does just give you a taste of it, dipping your toes in the water so that you can just be introduced to proper breathing technique. So for the majority of my beginner students, when I tell them to take a deep breath, this is what they do. They go like this. They go like this, and they get really tight, really tense, and their shoulders rise to their ears, and then they stretch themselves out. Their sternum is high. And I'm here to tell you, I'm sorry, that is a shallow breath because they're only using this part of their body when really you need to be filling from the bottom first. Okay, so how do you do that? So let's go over how the inhalation process works. We'll be going over some terms generally and describing how they work. The inhalation process involves the intercostal muscles. They're also known as the obliques, diaphragm, lungs, trachea, and larynx. This is where the vocal folds are housed. You have two folds that vibrate when air is passed between them. The diaphragm, for the most part, is shaped like an upside-down bowl. This is your main inhalation muscle. The lungs sit right on top of it and moves when the diaphragm moves. When it contracts, it flattens and creates a vacuum in your chest when you inhale. The muscles that pull the rib cage up and out are called the intercostals. Air comes through your open vocal tract and your lungs fill with air. Activating the side muscles of your abdomen essentially slows down the exhalation process, keeping your abdomen expanded for a longer period of time, providing a slow, steady stream of air to your vocal folds. That's known as breath support. So why is it important to activate these muscles in the exhalation process to support your singing? Now, the air needed in order to activate the vocal folds for speaking is different from the air needed in order to activate your vocal folds for singing. There needs to be more air pressure, and it needs to be a steady stream of air. And so how do you do that? You engage these muscles so that you can maintain the circumference, the expansion of your abdomen for as long as you possibly can, because that will sustain your singing voice. So some people mistake this portion of their abdomen as their diaphragm. That is not true. That diaphragm is that dome-shaped muscle that's sitting right here, and your lungs are on top of it. When that diaphragm contracts, the lungs want to fill with air, and if you are truly taking a deep breath, what happens is that this portion of your abdomen, which is called the viscera, that's where your organs are stored. You have your intestine and your stomach and things like that. I've also heard it called your vitals, that type of thing. And when you are truly taking a deep breath, that is going to expand, almost like you have a belly. But it's not just this portion of your abdomen. When you are taking a true deep breath, you're going to feel an expansion all around. The circumference of your abdomen should expand. I've also heard it as back breathing. So you should feel it expand in the front, in the sides, in the back, not just in one area. So when you breathe in, what I want you to do is I want you to take, doesn't matter what hand you take, I want you to find your belly button, and I want you to find about 3 fingers below your belly button. All right, you should feel this right here. And the lower part of your abdomen, when you breathe in, it should relax and expand. So I'm going to turn to the side so that you can see this. When I fill up, when I breathe, it should expand. So when I breathe in, it should relax this way. So first, I actually sit my students down. I have them put their feet on the floor, take their elbows, rest them on their knees, and then breathe in. So they lean forward, their back is still straight. But when you breathe in, you'll notice that your lower abdomen is expanding first. So if you breathe in, you should feel that belly expand, that lower part of your abdomen expand rather than contract. All right, so place one hand on the lower abdomen, and I want you just to relax. Just breathe in very easily, very gently. You should be able to feel that lower abdomen expand first rather than here. So try it again. And exhale. Okay, now I just want you to lift your posture just a little bit, still placing your hand on your lower abdomen. Now breathe in. And exhale. Focus on that lower abdomen. Now lift up just a little bit more. Back is still straight. Breathe in. And exhale. So put your hand on your lower abdomen again. Just breathe in very easily and try to feel that lower abdomen expand. Now place one of your hands on your ribs, or both if you'd like to. So I'm going to feel the bottom first, just relax, and then I'm going to focus on the sides of my ribs. Just relaxing the rib cage, just letting it naturally expand. So we have breathe in, expand the lower part of the abdomen. All right, now hands on the ribs and breathe in naturally, expanding the rib cage. Do you see that? My shoulders were down. So lower abdomen, 1. Ribs, 2. Expand and relax. Good. All right, one more time. 1. Expand. 2. Ribs. Okay, now this next technique I learned from my very first vocal coach, and she taught me that she felt like she just got so much more if she did step 1, step 2, and then added a third one up here, just lifting the sternum just a little bit more. I've heard from a lot of vocal coaches saying that you should never, ever, ever breathe from here. I think what they mean is that this should never be the first step. That's just my interpretation of it. If this is something that doesn't work for you, then forget about it. Don't worry about it. But for me, I feel like I just get a little bit more power. I'm able to fill up just a little bit more. So I have expanding of the lower abdomen. Relax. Now ribs. And then just a little lift here. Just a little bit. It's going to be very, very subtle. Let's try that again. 1, 2, 3. So very, very gentle. Make sure you don't try to inhale too much, because what happens is that if you fill up too much, the epiglottis will shut, and that causes tension right here. We do not want any tension. We want everything to be as relaxed as possible. Let's talk about breath support. We learned how to expand and use our diaphragm, expand the ribs, lift, proper posture. Okay, so how do we support it? What I want you to do is I want you to imagine 2 arrows squeezing in and down this way. And so then I make the analogy of if you're getting ready to be hit by a pillow in a pillow fight, and you kind of tighten up and you squeeze the obliques this way. So I'm thinking squeeze down and inward this way, like 2 arrows going this way. All right, so you want to have that strong core. And I'm not squeezing here, the lower abdomen. I'm actually thinking more concentrating on the sides right there instead of the bottom. Because if I squeeze inward, this is not expanded and not relaxed. What's happening is that this sinks in here. And so you want to keep this nice and relaxed and pushed out and down. So we squeeze here, push down. Imagine it pushing everything down, keeping this part relaxed. So when I'm talking about squeezing from here, think about a tube of toothpaste, I've heard, as well as possibly a pouch of applesauce. You don't want to squeeze from the middle, you want to squeeze from the bottom. So imagine your air is in your lungs. You don't want to squeeze from the middle, you want to squeeze from the bottom first. Now what I want you to do is I want you to take that 3-step breath, try to make it as seamless as you possibly can. Just make it one motion as you possibly can, thinking of each part of your abdomen. 1, 2, 3. And then as you exhale, you are going to squeeze and imagine those arrows going inward and down. Take your fist, you're going to place it over your lips just as something to push against, and you're going to blow into this portion of your hand, just to have something the air just doesn't escape all at once. And my lips are also going to be a little pursed, like that, just so that you have something to push against rather than it all blowing out at once. So ready? 3-step breath. 1, 2, 3. And exhale, squeeze down. Breathe in. Gentle. Make sure that you are breathing in at a nice, slow, even pace. And then time yourself. And when I mean by time yourself, I want you to breathe by counts. So breathe in for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale for 4. Then try 8. Then try possibly 12 or 10, something that's just a little bit longer than you did before, just to help you to be able to engage your muscles, to feel how it actually feels to properly breathe and what it feels like to support. Because once you connect your voice with your breathing, you're going to notice a difference. Another way to engage that lower diaphragm is to lay flat on the floor, just in a very, very relaxed pose. And then take a large book and place that on top of your lower abdomen. As you breathe, make sure that you're focusing on the lower abdomen and that book lifting first before you ever try to engage this part of your body. So you engage the lower part of your abdomen first before you try to expand the ribs and then lift the sternum just very gently. Again, can't overstress that. Just make sure that everything is relaxed. Do not try to overfill. Make sure that everything is just one fluid motion, and then try breathing to counts. 4, 8, 10, 12, whatever is going to work for you, that is best for you. Just try to extend it longer and longer, little by little. Hopefully, you'll be able to feel a difference.
Many singers are familiar with the phrases, "give it more support," and "use your diaphragm." I've heard these quoted so many times from singers who have pretty weak voices. So, what are they missing? The engine. A singer's engine is not the voice itself, and not even the lungs or the diaphragm. Now, obviously, these things are used in the creation of sound. However, that's not where the power comes from. Okay, the power comes from your stomach and your pelvic muscles. That's your engine. This is just the exhaust pipe, where the energy created by the engine escapes. So, to create a little boost of power and volume, you want to feel your stomach muscles working, kind of like you're about to get punched in the gut. And then you want to activate the pelvis by pressing down into the chair, kind of like you were going to go to the restroom. Okay, here's an example. If my car runs out of gas and I'm going to try to push it to the gas station, I'm not going to walk up behind the bumper and do this. Okay, I'm not that strong. What am I going to do? I'm going to get down into the ground. I'm going to bend my knees and push the ground away to get forward momentum. So this is exactly what you want to do with your voice here. Try it with an exercise, and as you get up to the top of the scale, add that little bit of pressure for great sound.
So what is the abdomen? And then what we'll do is we're going to take all these parts away from the model. So as we go, we'll point things out. As we remove things, we'll try to see and pay attention to what lies posterior to that organ or nearby, so we've got an idea of where things are relative to one another. Also remember that whenever we're talking about the body, whenever we use left or right, we're talking about the body's left and the body's right. Okay, not our view, but the body's left, the body's right. And we'll work our way back to the posterior abdominal wall and see what we see. So then the abdomen is the region of the trunk between the thorax and the pelvis, is your typical textbook description, which sounds nice and tidy. Now the superior end is nice and tidy. What we're seeing here is the diaphragm. So the diaphragm does cleanly separate the abdomen from the thorax. So the diaphragm's got kind of this curvy shape to it, so it's a three-dimensional thing here, it's curving over the liver here. But the diaphragm is a muscular sheet that separates the thorax from the abdomen. Now inferiorly it's a little bit harder because the pelvis, well, here's the pelvis, and the pelvis has these bony parts, so much of the pelvic viscera is down here, And this is pelvis, but the abdomen also extends all the way down here. So really, what's happening is that the contents of the abdomen are covered in a layer of peritoneum, like a thin sheet. So it's almost like all of these contents here, like it's all in a bag. And where that bag sinks down into the pelvis, the abdominal contents are sat on top of the pelvic contents, the pelvic viscera, and it's the peritoneum then that's really separating the pelvic viscera from the abdominal viscera. So then that distinction between abdomen and pelvis is a little bit softer down here. And of course, when women get pregnant and the uterus becomes enlarged, or even when your bladder fills with urine, that becomes enlarged, those push from the pelvis up into the abdomen. So there's a bit of interplay between the abdomen and the pelvis. Down here, we can see the bladder. So the bladder is in the pelvis. And normally then, if we had peritoneum here, the bladder would be covered over by peritoneum, and that would mark the inferior end of the abdominal cavity. That's where the abdomen would end. The descending colon then becomes the sigmoid colon here, as it makes a bit of an S shape and wiggles around, and when it goes back there and straightens out, it becomes the rectum. That's what the rectum means. Rectus means straight, so the rectum is the straight part of the large bowel and the last part before the anal canal. Alright, if we take that off, then we can see the aorta, and next to it is the inferior vena cava. So this is going to carry blood back from the abdomen. The liver is going to send blood into the inferior vena cava, and then that's going to go through the diaphragm and straight back into the heart, into the right side of the heart, so into the right atrium, and then off around the body. There's the superior vena cava up there. So, inferior vena cava, aorta, we can see a whole bunch of blood vessels branching from it. The really important ones are on here, and of course we can see these two. These are the kidneys. So the kidneys are posterior in the abdomen. They're in the posterior abdominal wall. They are posterior to the peritoneum, that connective tissue layer. So they get called retroperitoneal. So the kidneys are receiving a huge amount of blood. So they've got some big blood vessels. You can see the veins here because the renal veins are anterior. So the left renal vein has to run quite a long way, and it's running anterior to the aorta, but the renal arteries are posterior to those, and they're going to be large as well. So large blood vessels supplying small organs mean that these organs are doing something with the blood, and they're processing the blood. Of course, what they're doing is largely managing the amount of fluid inside the body. You are a bag of salty water. That's what your cells evolved from, and now you have a bag that you carry that salty water around in, and you have to maintain the right amount of salty water and the right amount of salt in it for your cells to be happy and to function normally. So that's largely what the kidneys are doing. They're managing all of that. So then from each kidney we can see these. So these are the ureters, and the ureters then are going to pass urine from the kidney down to the bladder, and they're on the posterior abdominal wall overlying these muscles here. So you see a number of muscles making up the posterior abdominal wall. You can see the diaphragm then arching back there. These thick muscles here, these are the psoas muscles, the psoas major, and it's got a little psoas minor lying on the top of it. This is iliacus, and these two muscles will join, insert into the femur, and give hip flexion, so they'll lift your knee towards your chest. These muscles here, these are Quadratus Lumborum, and they're running kind of in that direction from the vertebral column to the pelvis, which will give you a little bit of lateral flexion of your trunk, right?
We'll start today with talking about being in shape and whether that's a good thing. Now it seems obvious that it would be a good thing, but actually a lot of people in the past have said, well, you know, bigger people, more rotund people, you see a lot of opera singers that are larger in mass, that will help your voice, that maybe actually it'd be better to gain weight to become a good singer. And while you might actually get a bigger sound if you were a bigger person, I would say that ultimately trying to gain weight to become a better singer is probably not the best strategy. I do think that you're right, Anna, that there's something to being in good shape to become a better singer. If you are in shape, you will have a better lung capacity. I do recommend a lot of cardio exercise to have really great breathing. And of course, just having good muscle tone and good flexibility, that's going to help you just to have good musculature throughout your body. And then finally, being in good shape also contributes to good alignment and good posture, which is also good for you as a singer. So I do think that being in shape ultimately is a much better thing for you as a singer than, say, trying to gain weight to increase the size of your voice. But then to your question, Anna, is it good to do crunches? And is it good to develop your ab region? And to that I say, not necessarily. A lot of singers really do think that if they do a lot of crunches and they develop strong abs, that will help their voice. And really that's not necessarily related in any kind of way. Remember that your breath support is a system of holding air in the body. So if you have strong abs, those are exhale muscles. If you're working on your six-pack or your sides and your obliques, that's really not going to contribute to your breathing for singing. That might look good on stage, but it doesn't actually do anything to help your singing. It's actually the opposite of breath support, right? We need to hold the belly in some ways open and not bring it in too fast and hard like what a crunch would do. So it won't help you directly to do crunches and ab work. But then, on the other hand, we don't need to be afraid of them. A lot of singing teachers and singers have actually worried about whether having a six-pack would affect their singing, whether having strong abs would affect their singing negatively. And some people have actually sort of let themselves go through here in order to become better as singers. And that is not something that you need to fear and not something that you need to do. You can have strong abs. The key is, can you release them? Certainly we see lots of Broadway performers with very, very developed abs, and a lot of pop rock performers as well have a good abdominal core, and that's not affecting their singing. They're very, very good singers. The key is being able to release what you've done. If you've contracted these muscles, you have to be able to keep them open when you sing. The only muscle that we really want to be engaged when we sing is the low abs, and that, again, is only a really gentle thing. So, again, it's not a bad thing, it's not something to be afraid of, but also it's not something that's going to help you to have too strong of an ab region. Then, how about some things to look out for as far as working out and developing your abs? Dancers. A lot of dancers have a core that they've developed since maybe 3 or 4 years old. If you've had a lot of ballet training or you've been dancing for a decade or more, a lot of times singing can be difficult for you. And the reason why is because of that state of contraction. Bodybuilders and people who really work out excessively also have this issue sometimes with their singing as well. You need to be able to undo what you've done. So you need to work against the core. Open the belly, open the sides when you breathe. Make sure that all the bringing in can be brought out as well. The other thing is neck muscles. When you're doing crunches, it's very, very important to watch out that you don't tighten these muscles. A lot of times the abs and the neck can get connected. This is why sometimes when people leave a Pilates class, they feel tense in the neck, or when they've done a lot of crunches, they feel tense in the neck. You want to make sure that you're supporting your head and not linking these two muscles, because that way, anytime you breathe, you might actually be contracting here and contracting here. So watch out for that pair of the neck and the abs. So then what are a few things that we can do about this? If you're a dancer or bodybuilder who's overdone it, or if you're just thinking about how you can be healthy and still keep that strong core. First thing I recommend, we'll talk about this in future episodes, both of these things. First is yoga. Yoga is a great way to be in shape. It does alignment, it does flexibility and strength, and most importantly, it incorporates breathing. It makes sure that you can keep open here, even if you're working it. So yoga is going to work against some of those overly gripped tendencies. And then finally, you can just do some breathing exercises on your own. Make sure that you can expand and contract freely, and also do some long exhales or even some hisses, a long to make sure that you're not bringing this in too violently and too firmly.